Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. I just wanted to go through some of the, or good morning, depending on when you're seeing this. I wanted to go through, wow, this is blinding me. Hold on a second. Oh, that was really blinding me. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so that was fancy. Technical difficulties. Wanted to go through the State Department stuff and the corporate stuff that I can talk about. Just to give you a general idea, general flavor of what's going on around the world. I'll try to keep this one quick. Nothing new from what we were dealing with last week, but a few things did change. So let's start from here. We're going to start in Africa and then go alphabetically through the areas as they have it broken down here. In Mali, UN peacekeepers were wounded in a blast. Several peacekeepers from the UN mission in Mali, currently in the process of withdrawing from the country, were seriously injured when their convoy fell victim to an IED. So even troops that have nothing to do with anything, they're trying to leave certain countries. Now, I will point out that UN peacekeepers went to Haiti after that hurricane like 6-7 years ago. Not the most recent one, another one. And they caused a cholera epidemic. And then the Haitians were pissed at them and throwing rocks and shit. So keep in mind, nothing against other people helping each other, but you get UN peacekeepers in your area, they're not going to be necessarily coming from France or England or Canada. They'll be coming from God knows where with very different cultures. And if they're not properly trained and briefed, you don't know who's coming there. But guess what? They're going to have uniforms and guns. I think they're afraid to come to Texas. Honestly, if we got peacekeepers here, they wouldn't want to leave. They'd be like, no, screw it, I'm staying here. But in any case, interesting that this is happening. In Sudan, the U.S. calls for immediate cessation of attacks in Darfur. The United States is troubled by reports of an imminent attack on El Fasher, North Darfur, and is calling on the warring parties in Sudan to cease attacks. I find it ironic that the Russian government had made a deal with the Sudanese government to do port of call of Russian destroyers in Sudan, and a month later, a civil war breaks out. Surely nobody created that. But anyway, just saying. Uganda oil pipeline protesters face detention. So Uganda's an oil-producing country. Unlike in the U.S., the protesters caused too much garbage, and they tried to attack or disrupt a $4 billion oil pipeline, and they are now in jail. But unfortunately, that government is known for human rights violations, so they're probably not having a good time. So I guess you go to other people's countries and you protest. You get arrested under their law because they give zero shits that you're an American or Canadian or whatever. So mental note there. East Asia Pacific, China and the Philippines. Philippine police hunt for 6 kidnapped Chinese nationals. So the Philippines has been having issues with this little separatist group in the country. They kind of squashed the bigger group, but they're still out there. And also there's a lot of organized crime. That's why the president there is literally giving death penalties for drug convictions because they're trying to get a handle on this. But these 6 Chinese nationals were abducted. Keep in mind, this just emphasizes if you're traveling for the holidays, you need to understand where you're going, what the risks are. Do some homework on your location, on the hotel or the guest house, wherever you're staying, your friend's house, family, what's in the area, where you can get amenities, where you can get groceries. You don't want to be wandering around strange places that may have a risk. You know, if I'm in a foreign country, the first thing I do is during the day, the first day I'm there, and I try to get there early, is go walk around the hotel. I get a paper map from the hotel because they normally give those out. And I walk around the hotel and see where all the stores are. And then if I need anything, I get it that first day. But then I make a mental note on my map, a little bit of a pen, where the stores were. So if I have to go back, I'm not farting around, walking lost. You know, I go to the store, get my ass back. So something to think about if you're traveling overseas. Middle East and North Africa. That's a fun one. So Israel, Palestine, still fighting. Confusion, frustration, and hope at Gaza's border with Egypt as the first foreign passport holders depart. Hundreds of foreign passport holders and dozens of other seriously wounded Palestinians, desperate to escape Israel's bombardment of Gaza, crowded into the Black Metal Gate on the Egyptian border, hoping to pass through the only exit on that side of the country. Then another one, that's from the Associated Press, another one from AP. Diplomacy to pause fighting and ease siege intensifies as Israeli ground troops advance on Gaza City. This is actually dated as of a few hours ago. I heard that the Israeli army had basically either run off or basically eviscerated. They just killed the defenders, the Hamas fighters, and they've surrounded Gaza City. So they now control the periphery of the city. And at this point, they're probably going to start making entry. They keep saying, the Palestinian death toll is 9,000, but, there were 1,500 Israelis and God knows how many people on both sides injured. So not a good thing all around. Again, these are kind of hard to predict, right? These are one of those black swan events. You go to visit Tel Aviv because Tel Aviv is a techie area. It's kind of like the Silicon Valley of the Middle East, much like Dubai is the banking central of the Middle East. And, you go there and all of a sudden these dudes in freaking airlights and paragliders show up and start shooting people. Like, who the hell predicted that, right? So understanding if you go to a foreign country, even if you're in the US or Canada and you're going to certain borders or certain cities, understand what could possibly happen there. Like you go to the Texas border, it's probably safe 99% of the time, 95% of the time, but you have a risk. So understanding those risks is super important. So you guys pay attention to that stuff. South and Central Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan's northwestern border crossing was flooded with thousands of people looking to cross into Afghanistan on Thursday. A day after the government's deadline expired for undocumented foreigners to leave or face expulsion. So basically, Pakistan said, if you are not documented or you are not here legitimately, we're going to throw you in jail and then we're going to kick you the hell out. And so there was a big freak out on the border. A lot of countries are doing this. It should be later in here, but they're European countries who have squashed, France and Germany, not France and Paris, France and Germany have basically made it illegal to do a Palestinian or Israeli protest. They're like, we're done with all the shit. If you got in protests, we're tear gassing you and you're going to jail for a week, and that's it. They've just squashed that nonsense, at least for now. However, a lot of these countries, there's another country, I think Poland is basically saying, if you're not documented and we catch you, you're going to jail for 6 months. And then we're going to fly you to whatever country you're supposed to be in. And we're going to kick you off the plane and good luck. So we're starting to see that whole Schengen, I think it was the Schengen border, basically. It was like everyone in the Eurozone can go wherever the hell they want. They're starting to get squashed. So, because you're letting in a bad element when you don't control what's going on. So, it is what it is. India, air pollution sparks alarm. Dims World Cup cheer in India. So they're having the World Cup over there, but their air is terrible. And that's in MSN News. So, and that's in New Delhi, in the capital. So another thing to think about is if you do travel to foreign lands or even to different cities, understand what the health risks are. You live in Minnesota and you visit Texas in the summer, it's going to be triple digit heat. You don't want to go running at 4 in the afternoon because you'll freaking die. If you got to go running, go at 7 in the morning when the temperatures, your body is more acclimated to that. Same thing, a Texan goes, play in the snow in Buffalo during the winter, they're probably going to get frostbite because they don't know how to behave. You go and acclimate. So understand, dress accordingly, bring the change of clothes you need. And if you get there and realize you screwed up and don't have the right clothes, that's a great time to go get them with the stores I told you to figure out in the first place. So again, travel ideas. Western Hemisphere, Brazil. Lula militarizes Brazil's main ports, airports amid rising crime. Now, this is interesting. because this is from Reuters News. Brazilian President Lucio Inácio Lula da Silva on Wednesday temporarily militarized security at some of the country's most important ports and airports. Now, this guy's a clear communist. He's not even a socialist. He's a damn communist. Crime, the creating of crime is always a gateway to taking away of rights and taking control of certain things by governments. It's been done time and time again. Mao used the people who are now in Taiwan as revolutionaries as an excuse to crack down the way he did, right? Stalin, Lenin, they used what they call the White Russians versus the Red Russians. The White Russians were more pro-democracy, pro-aristocracy, used them as an excuse. Then ran Trotsky off and used Trotsky as an excuse to clamp down on people and to execute people. So although this is probably legitimate in that they do have major crime issues, it's also concerning because it is a tool. And if you look at our cities right now and you look at all the crap that's going on, and all the behavior people have about letting crime run rampant, all right? They have one mass shooting in Minnesota. Everyone's freaking out, which got, don't get me wrong, not Minnesota, Maine, sorry. Thinking of the Minnesota Vikings. Anyway, Maine, and that was terrible. And that was very weird, by the way, but that's a whole nother video. That got a bunch of media. But the fact that we have gangs of young individuals running through LA, smashing, grabbing tens and twenties and hundreds of thousands of dollars of jewelry, to the point that San Francisco and LA, many large stores have just shut up and they've left. And the people don't even have a damn Walmart because the theft is so rampant and nobody is addressing it. Makes you wonder if somebody's trying to set the stage for, well, crime is so bad, we need to nationalize this business or take over this. And there's even been talk about that with the, I believe it was in New York or Chicago, about creating a state-run grocery store because the grocery stores were getting robbed. I might be misphrasing that news article. It's been a while since I read it, so feel free in the chat if I said it wrong, correct me in the comments, that's fine. If you have a link, that would be excellent. But I remember reading that where one of the mayors of one of these stupid cities was like, oh, well, if the Walmarts keep closing down because of crime, we'll create a state-run Walmart. And now you control the food. Just saying. All right, I'm off that soapbox right now. Okay, El Salvador lawmakers repeal media crackdown, declare war on gangs won. El Salvador's Congress repealed a law on Wednesday that criminalized the publication of gang messages as ruling party leaders declared victory in the war against the criminal groups. I didn't even know they had done that. They basically said you can't put the gangs. So although El Salvador, we all know, has MS-13, they've been fighting gangs for years. You think about this. These guys use crime as an excuse to crush the press. The press, which hates the 2A crowd and the patriotic crowd, and actually they hate anyone who just doesn't do what they want to do. And now they're beating up on the pro-Israeli people. After you take the guns and you arrest the people who'd actually fight back, what's the next thing every freaking dictator in history has done? They go and either control or crush the press. I'm just seeing, the more I read this stuff, right? Because I've been reading this to you guys for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. My channel's 3 years old now. But the more, and sorry about my sinuses again, but the more I see this, the more it makes me wonder. These are all little power levers. I can't speak today either. Power levers that these leaders are using to control the ports, control the media, squash opposition. We're going to indict the guy I ran against so he can't run anymore. Okay, just saying. Kind of skirting that fine line this week. Watch, I'm going to go put in the YouTube jump. Panama's assembly looks to revoke contract for a Canadian mining company after a public outcry. So that one's, Panama's National Assembly has newly passed a new law revoking controversial mining contract in an environmentally vulnerable part of the country. To be fair to Panama, Western countries have screwed the little countries a lot, either through colonialism or through run-amok capitalism. I'm not saying we shouldn't have capitalism, quite the opposite, but there should be intelligent regulation. And if there's no regulation, then companies will do bad shit, and then the local people wind up with contaminated water and all that shit. So, interesting, but again, a national trying to push out a company. Now, will they do it as a national corporation? Who knows? In Uruguay's foreign minister resigns following leak of audios related to a passport scandal. Uruguay's foreign minister Franco Bustillo resigned late yesterday, shortly after the audio messages were published, which he appears to ask a former official to not hand over evidence in an investigation over passports. So, a passport issued to an accused drug user. All right, so he might have been protecting his girlfriend. Who the hell knows? Anyway, interesting that you have all these things going on, and it's interesting to watch crime being used as an excuse to nationalize infrastructure, to crush opposition, to crush media. Oh, we have too much crime, because it's easy for a government to it's hard to change laws in a country, especially the US, right? You have to go through houses of Congress, it could get challenged in the courts, the whole 9 yards. But if you can get people elected or put in place who don't enforce the damn laws, it doesn't matter what's on the books. They're not enforcing it. If you're not enforcing it, the crime will go up. And if the crime goes up, then it becomes an excuse to say, things are getting out of hand, kids. We're going to go and nationalize your police force. Do you think, as many problems as we may or may not have in your area with your police, do you really think if they put federally appointed police who come from God knows what part of the country, they're going to give a shit about your neighborhood? I'd rather have cops that have a dog in the race patrolling my street. Like, well, your kids go here too, so you don't want crime and you don't want to cause problems. You want to do your job. I want to do my job. Cops who come from somewhere else and they don't care about the neighborhood, it's just a gig. They go there, enforce the law. They don't know the local jive. They don't know the local rhythm of the community. That's usually where you have problems. So, just interesting, these all these little maneuvers. And again, that's all hypothesis, but all these little maneuvers to control infrastructure, control press. We saw it during the election, came out 2 years later, where they're like, oh yeah, well, the FBI called, Twitter, and they called this guy and they called that guy. Come on. But who ordered them to do that? Anyway, I digress. So we do have some updated analytical reports that I do need to pull down, because I tried to pull them down earlier. That includes an updated report on Israel-Palestine, updated report on Niger is having issues. I mentioned that last week. So I'm going to have to do that on another one, boys and girls, just so you guys are up to date. Once I want to read those in detail, because each one of those reports probably has more pages than this summary in its entirety. Now, we'll put out a few consular messages. So these are from the various embassies around the world. So Mozambique, U.S. Embassy is aware of a planned march scheduled to occur due to, just says planned protests in Maputo. It doesn't give a specific reason. France has put out an alert, effective November 1st, until further notice. The French government has reported a significant surge in anti-Semitic acts in France since the attack on Israel by Hamas and the ensuing Israeli response. Sri Lanka also having a protest. This one, a small organization, plans to protest in front of the U.S. Embassy regarding Gaza. That's an announced protest. So when they announce the protest, that usually means whoever's protesting has actually done the paperwork. They're like, hey, we're going to protest about this shit. And they paid their check, they signed the paper, and the cop said, okay, you go here at this time and you go make noise and throw shit, and then you have to leave at 5 so we can go to dinner. Unless they have a riot, which often happens. But France putting out that kind of notification to our embassy that they're attacking and there are a lot of anti-Semitic problems. France is typically known as a country that likes to protest, but typically has law and order. And that's pretty important to hear, because it's not a difficult step for protests and anti-Semitic acts like that, or anti-whatever acts, take your pick, to go from France and Germany and the UK to the US. And they already have. There've already been incidents here. So be careful where you go. Don't get involved in crap that you don't need to. There are plenty of incidents I just walked away from, because what am I going to gain? Yeah, I can beat someone's ass. I can get killed. They can get killed. But why? Who cares? They're not that important to me. And their opinion doesn't matter that much that I can't just leave. I'd rather be a very bad surprise to someone who puts the situation such that I can't leave anymore and now I have to deal with you, because then it's going to be a negative surprise for the other party. So avoid these situations, and remember, whatever you do, at least in Texas, if I put bullets down range, I'm going to have to justify every time I pull the trigger in a grand jury. So one doesn't want to do that unless you absolutely have no choice. But if you have to, do it right. Just saying. Anyway, again, I didn't want to interject my summary with all my opinions, but I find it interesting that all these countries that we've been following are suddenly crushing the press, crushing or taking control of things because of crime that they've been failing to control in the first place. In any case, you noticed I didn't mention too much about Israel-Palestine other than the anti-Semitic acts, because there's other stuff in the world that we need to pay attention to. Anyway, that's your summary for this week. I hope you guys stay safe, be careful on the road, watch where you're going, and do your homework. I will be traveling quite a bit between now and the end of the year, both for family and for work. So you guys keep me in your prayers, and you guys do your homework. And if I see anything really cool, I will try and share it with you, because that way you can learn from what I see. Anyway, guys, God bless, Godspeed. I will catch you all later. Take care.